Hello, Miss Jennifer, and my lovely boy Erik. How are you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. How are you?
Good, good. I want to do a call out to Deanna, who gave me so many nice little things, bracelets, and I've got so many compliments on when I was on my little trip to Colorado. So, thank you,
She,
Deanna. And
she's so sweet. She's so sweet.
yeah, she is. And hopefully this will take the focus off my hair, which has reached a critical mass. Critical mass achieved. So I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. It's really bad. But okay, we are going to talk about how to hold on to your emotional resources and protect yourself from energy vampires. Oh God, yes, I have been
Oh,
I've been a victim of energy vampires many times. So my sweet boy, I missed you and thank you for going on the trips with me. Really appreciate it.
oh, he had a great time.
Yeah,
He's
I
like, I had
know
a
he
great
must have.
time. It was so fun.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
Colorado was awesome. The
oh,
weather was
gorgeous.
really.
Yeah, gorgeous. So, the first thing that he says about energy vampires is that they're sneaky.
Yeah.
Um, they're sneaky. So, usually, at least the first instance with them, you don't realize it's happening before it's kind of too late.
Oh, that's
That
true.
they've drained your energy, that they've zapped you, that they've sucked you in.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of a pun there, I guess. Um, so the biggest problem he says is recognizing them. To begin with, learning how to recognize it. And okay, so what he's saying is the the best way to do it is to stay present in the moment, which is very difficult to do as humans.
Oh
But
God.
especially when you meet somebody new and you're dealing with somebody new, before you answer a question of theirs, take a deep breath. How does what they said to me make me feel? What do I feel awkward? Do I feel uncomfortable? Am I getting any warning bells? But most often we just get going. We don't take the time to say, like, what's really happening here. And that's the biggest issue, is that human brain, go 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 go.
Yeah,
So
and then
slowing down,
yeah.
being present in the moment is a good way to identify energy vampires before they have the chance to, you know, take your energy.
I know then they don't have to be always mean. In fact, in my experience, most energy vampires are super nice. Like my younger sister Denise. I love you, Denise, because you were. It's just like it was exhausting to be around her. I guess she was always like in my
Needy,
space, talking.
needy.
Maybe not asking for things all the time, but just needing attention more than
Yes.
anything else. And it's just like,
Yeah, that's what Eric is saying is one of the biggest things. It's not that they're mean, it's that they're needy. They need whether it be reassurance, whether it be um
attention.
attention, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. There's a neediness behind energy vampires.
What makes them? Are they raised a certain way, for example?
um,
Not getting
yeah,
enough attention in their childhood or
yes, of course. He says sometimes they're just energy vampires because the rest of us need to learn from them. So sometimes it's just the role that they are to play in a particular relationship. But yes, not getting enough attention as a child, not feeling heard. um, insecurity plays a role here, he says. But not all people who are insecure are energy vampires, but it does definitely play a role. um, but that reassurance is a big one, just like
yeah.
that self-esteem, like you're okay, like everything's all right, you're not weird, you're not insane, like this sort of like worrying
Yeah.
about who they are as a person, so they need from others.
Well, maybe they also could be star seeds or feel like they don't belong here, or feel ungrounded and need reassurance because of that. I mean, could that be a type?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he says that plays right into insecurity, because a lot of times star seeds feel insecure here. It's kind of like, okay, wait a second. It's like if you took, for the most part, anybody and pick them up and drop them down into an area they don't know anything about. They don't know the people. People are going to kind of feel like, okay, wait a second, and you're going to need help from others. But what he says is that, like with energy vampires, that neediness can become habitual.
Yeah.
So that
Because
even if,
maybe they get addicted to it, like, oh, that felt good.
yeah,
She reassured me, so I want more, that sort of thing.
yes, yes, yes. So addictive and habitual. Like if maybe they've worked on self-esteem, they're still kind of energy vampires, it's because this is just how they've behaved.
Yeah. And they
Um,
maybe depend on others to supply their self-esteem um, for them instead of finding self-love inside and and rediscovering your and reclaiming the power that they always had basically inside.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, Now he says there are energy vampires who have a much, more negative effect on us. Sometimes like the one, like what we've been talking about before, like kind of more that neediness. It's like, it can be like, oh, I just, yes, I've told you for the 100th time that this is okay, like that, where
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't really bring us down like into like a really low vibration, but it can be a
Ah,
drain on us. But then he says there's other energy vampires that can really lower our vibration, really, really bring us down, like bring negativity into our
yeah.
environment.
Yeah,
And
the
he's,
other ones are like, oh, I don't have time for this, this kind of thing. I got, five
yes,
kids, and but this
yeah,
other type, they bring you down. Can you give us an example, Eric?
yeah. So this would be, um, well, like the people who are more on the attack. Um, you have experienced this personally here over the last few months. Some of the more
Oh
negative
yeah,
energy
yeah.
vampires. So it's that they still need attention. There's still a neediness to it.
Hmm.
Um, like the trolls on the internet.
Yeah,
These are energy vampires because what they're doing is they're putting out negativity to stir something up because they need that negative response back. They get something out of it. Um,
yeah.
so internet trolls, he says that's a real good one right now because everybody's probably had some sort of experience with an energy troll. That is an example of a pretty negative energy vampire. And when you, because then what happens is when you defend yourself against them, it doesn't matter what you say. It does not matter when you're dealing with somebody like this. It doesn't matter if you have all the facts in the world behind you. Nothing you say is gonna. So it's like a negative exchange of energy,
Yeah,
and
it's
they
like fighting
they
fire with
think,
fire.
yes, but
Yeah,
see, for the person who's being attacked by the energy vampire, they're losing. They're
yeah.
losing their energy. They're losing their positive outlook. They're losing their confidence. And the other person is getting like a rush from it, like a high from it.
Ah, the
Um,
dopamine. They're being
mhm,
rewarded. Yeah. So
yes.
what do you do? How do you handle these uh these trolls and other negative, the ones who want to bring your vibration down? How do you handle it besides just like don't read the comments or ignore? But
Yeah.
even if you do that, ignoring it still is like a little pang of pain, in your heart.
So, oh, absolutely. So he's funny because he says it's so hard for people to do, but he says really one of the best things to do is to send love
Yeah,
and positive energy to them. If you're
yeah.
somebody who prays, you pray for them. Um, it's like he says you have to try to see them,
As flawed, as hurting, I think. Maybe
as yes, yes, somebody that's flawed, somebody that's hurting, somebody that's damaged. But
damaged.
it's so
Oh,
easy to get into that, that kind of defensive state.
I know.
Um,
I've been caught up in that. I totally know.
it's
It's
as
very
a
difficult.
human, it's almost impossible, at least not sometimes, to get caught up in it.
Right.
Because again, we're not here to be perfect, he said, so it's okay to do it, but then, you learn from it and say, okay, well, this didn't work last time, so maybe I'll try something else this time. Um,
Yeah, because you just feed it. If you fight back, you just feed into their power, and that means giving away your power. I mean, you always have to stay at a point where, I mean, after all, they may come from a place of power, artificial power, but they are
yes.
damaged. Their vibration is lower, and I guess you just have to remember that and rise above and try to raise their vibration by sending them love, light, praying for them, etc.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, and he says like in this world, like with the spirituality and the psychic and the mediumship and stuff, um he's like kind of like, if you're empathic, any of this sort of thing, you're going to experience, energy vampires quite a bit,
Yeah,
in just your everyday life, in your work environment, in your home environment, online, you're going to experience them. So what he's saying is you just basically kind of learn the feelings that you get in your body,
yeah,
and it will help you to avoid, it will help you to avoid them. Some people just want so much from you. Like at work, if in a work setting, he's saying, like, if you work in an office and one of your coworkers is constantly asking you for help with their work,
yeah,
it's like this is another form of like an energy vampire that may be a little bit more subtle, because this person may seem kind of friendly. Boundaries, you have to have boundaries. What And he says, like, if you took a person who one person would consider an energy vampire, somebody else might not,
that's
because
true.
either the defenses were good, or whatever it was that was draining the other person just doesn't matter to the second. It's like, okay, whatever, this behavior doesn't bother me, it doesn't affect.
Yeah, yeah,
Some people do really well, uh like with addicts. Some people can work with people with addiction,
yeah.
and it doesn't drain on them, whereas other people, it's like one experience and it's like an exhausting thing.
Yeah, and it's really easy because they can be manipulative. It's very easy to enable them, like the coworker, doing the work that he should or she should be able to learn how to do themselves, etc.
Yes.
Or the
Yeah,
addict. Yeah.
Eric just made a joke. It's like the Scarlet Letter. If they could just wear a big, V, a big red V, so we would all know who the energy vampires are, to us.
Exactly. So how do you set the boundaries? Um, Give me an example. Well, you know what? We could, can we bring in my sister Denise, one of the nice energy vampires? You think you could find Aunt Denise?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, Erik, go hunt her down.
Okay.
I haven't talked to her for so long.
Ooh, sorry, so I get a little head pain as her energy
Oh,
comes in. It's
really?
okay.
She's
Yeah,
a
it's how I
she
work. I just get a little
could be a headache.
Okay, so what was the question?
Well, I was wondering, Denise, if you're there. Hello, I haven't talked to you for so long.
Yeah.
Miss you.
Hi. Hi. Yes, yes. I miss you too. Love you. Uh,
Oh, are you
okay.
happy? You happy?
Of course. Of course.
And as
Uh,
you know, we took care of my husband and I mean, Papa and I took care of you for a long time because you were really struggling with so many disabilities.
yes.
And sometimes it would be very hard for me because you were always there, always in my face, always asking questions.
Very needy.
And
She said
very
I need
nice though, but why were you like that? It had
um
to do with my parents, but
yes.
and
Yes.
how should I have handled it?
Okay, so what she's saying is that so number one, she was emotionally very needy, but she was also physically very needy.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And so she became a victim.
Yeah.
She said, I went right into that victim role.
Yeah.
So she said, what she said to me is that by the time you started taking care of her, the victim personality was too ingrained. There was no way to change it.
Yeah.
So what she says is, had you tried to set boundaries, or had you tried, it just wouldn't have worked, because she would have become more needy, or she would have had more, I don't know, outbursts or panic, or
Yeah.
so it was the way it needed to be. But what would have been beneficial is if we could have caught that sort of
Earlier.
victim,
Yeah.
that victim, because yes, while physically she may have needed help, emotionally she said emotionally I could have been less of a victim had I
Well,
worked on it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think the way you were raised, I mean, my
Oh,
parents were pretty much emotionally neglectful and abusive. So was that
yes.
why?
Yeah, she said what she's just said to me is that somewhere in her younger days she almost had like just an absolute emotional disconnect.
Yeah.
It's like she almost was telling me she had to go into like safe place. She had to like create a
Yeah.
safe place. So it's
Yeah.
like
Me
she lived
too.
in a
Yeah.
fantasy,
Yeah.
in a fantasy kind of world.
Yeah.
Um, so for her, it's almost as if in the situation here, that energy vampire thing
Hmm.
is kind of like in the chart, in the journey
Oh,
for
yeah.
everybody to learn from. And she kind of smiles and she says, see, we wouldn't be talking about this right now if I
That's
hadn't
true.
brought that lesson here.
That's
um
true.
so so for her it was kind of ingrained in there.
Well, what are most the energy vampires that are like you, nice? Um, what are they, if it's in their chart, what are they here to learn and what are they here to teach?
Okay, so she says some of the things to teach are about for others to learn to like keep your strength, to find your power, to keep your power, and if
Yeah.
you think you've lost it, to find it again.
Mm,
Of course there's always something for them to learn about finding that themselves and kind of moving beyond this, and how do I get out of this? Is any pattern of behavior that any of us come here with, we can learn better ways to cope with it, learn coping skills, how to get out of this. And even if it's a behavior you can't entirely get rid of, maybe
mhm.
it's a behavior you can learn to cope with better. She said, there's that for us to learn
Yeah.
about, but anybody who has any kind of repeating behavior.
Yes.
Compassion is another one that people who are energy vampires, but very nice and sweet like this, for others, there's a lesson about compassion.
Yeah. And
Because
patience, I'm sure.
yes, patience
Yeah.
is a huge one. Because she said at points you knew that she couldn't help herself.
Yeah.
She said I got to the point where I could not help myself anymore.
No. No. I know.
Um, and so what else can you do but to
Yeah.
help her?
No, she really needed help physically.
Yeah,
Had to come home from the clinic at regular intervals to straight cath her bladder, and because it wasn't working, she was very, very sick.
very
But
happy to leave here, she
oh
said,
God,
very
yeah,
happy to go.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Oh,
sure you had
yeah.
a lot of misery at the end. All right. So, any advice, Denise, that you can give anybody that has an energy vampire in their life or that are energy vampires in this life?
Okay, so what she's specifically directing me to is that there are certain people, and this, like, you're going to know this when you hear it, who attract a lot of energy vampires. Okay, so
Oh,
for
yeah.
most of us, we're going to have one or two in our life, and we just have to assume that's a lesson that we're supposed to learn, and we move from it. But if you are somebody who is always attracting energy vampires into your life, she said you probably really need to take a look at your boundaries. How
Ah,
high is your tolerance for certain behaviors? Um, do you give too much of yourself, like she's saying, in relationships, friendships? Are you giving too much of yourself in the beginning so that you're not getting, an even exchange?
yeah,
So she said these are things to pay attention to. She said, but it's very hard to go from being somebody with maybe some lax boundaries
yeah,
to try to enforce boundaries. People who are around you are not going to like it if you're somebody with not many boundaries and you try to enforce boundaries.
yeah. That's
So
true.
do
I've
this.
seen that. I have seen that.
Oh yes, you make
Saying
my
no is very difficult. I always want to help people, but then I get overwhelmed, because they just, oh, you want to help? All right, let me give you all this huge sack of problems to fix. So,
exactly.
and then when you, then all of a sudden they get mad at you if you,
Yes, yes. It's whereas, so she's like, if you say no from the beginning, if you say, it's easier. It's
yeah,
easier. It's like it's like you start disciplining children from the beginning instead of trying to discipline them when they
When
become
they're
teenagers. It's
brats.
like,
Really. That's
yeah,
true. That's true.
so you've got to set your boundaries, and don't give too much of yourself. It's about balance.
Yeah.
Make
So,
sure it's
yeah, and I'm sure that
sustained.
that can cause illness in some people if they're
Oh
drained.
yes.
Yeah, what kind of illnesses can you get if your emotions or your resources are just drained all the time?
Oh, geez, anxiety, depression, stomach issues.
Mm.
She said there's a wide range: weight loss, weight gain. Um, you
Like
know,
cancer, or as far as any of those things, or no, or
yes, eventually to
yeah.
lead to this. But see, she said anything like this, anything where you're depleting all the time, it's gonna go to whatever area of your body's weak. The
Ah,
physical weaknesses in your body. We
I
all have
see.
physical weaknesses.
Yep.
So these kind of behaviors, this kind of stress that we put ourselves under tend to attack those areas of our body that are weaker. So yeah, if you're somebody who has like a weakness or a DNA that's maybe more prone to cancer,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Mm.
you may spark something like that in yourself. It's also depleting yourself like this, if you're an addict, can um, throw you right off the wagon, so to speak.
Yeah.
If dysfunctional behaviors, it can do all of that to us. And if you are an energy vampire, well, there's a good chance you're not aware of it, she said.
Yeah. I
And
know.
Eric's
Probably
kind of
not.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. um and she says a lot of times energy vampires, like, they get going and there is some anxiety behind it, and
Yeah.
so they can't sometimes stop themselves.
Oh.
It's like becomes obsessive, like they need that reassurance, they need that fix, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Poor. What would anything like um, hypnotic regression to another life that or going to the Akashic records or to try to see if this you can cut the spiritual DNA thread or I mean I'm just I'm just saying all quantum session
Absolutely.
or going to the in between lives and the planning phase for this incarnation to figure out why if this was a plan, if so why. I mean, what would help?
Absolutely. All of that is beneficial. Of course, the person has to be in the mind state of willing to explore and find answers. But yes,
Yeah.
all of that could be helpful. You know, a hypnosis session might work great for one person,
Yeah.
and a Reiki session works great for somebody else. It's But all of this could be helpful. But the biggest thing is the willingness to look at
Yeah,
what's
and it's just like borderline personality people. They rarely accept their diagnosis, so it's really hard to
yeah,
get them to the
yeah.
place where they receive treatment. So, but
And, he
yeah,
what Eric is saying, because Eric has now stepped kind of back forward, and he says, like, if you're finding yourself in a situation where you have to deal with an energy vampire, because that's quite simply is going to happen. Like,
yeah,
there are some people you just have to deal with. But he said, things like saging and cleansing your area, stones,
oh,
aromatherapy, all of
yeah,
these things can help protect you from other people's energy.
smoke them out. I say just smoke them out.
Yes. Yes. Like, envision yourself before you leave the house in the morning surrounded by, whatever, the white light of the Holy Spirit, if that resonates with you, or an imaginary bubble that other people's energy can't penetrate. There's all kinds of ways to, the higher you keep your vibration,
Yeah, I
basically, is
mean,
what
it's
he's
like, what
saying.
about a garlic necklace? Would that work?
Yeah, and maybe some holy water, he says,
There
just
we go.
just splash
Ah, it
on
burns! It
people. Yes.
burns!
Yes.
My
So
lovely wickedness.
yeah, basically he says the higher you keep your vibration, the less effect energy vampires will have on you.
That's good. I can
But
imagine. Yeah, it impacted me most when my vibration was lower, when I had a bad day at the clinic, whatever. I don't know. But
yep.
so what is the most common other life link um, for a energy vampire? I mean, can you name? Well, like, did Denise have a past life that made her come in as
Oh,
an energy
gotcha.
vampire?
I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay. Um, well, he says it's not necessarily like anything specific, but like maybe if you were subject to an energy vampire in one life, you might want to come in as an energy vampire and see what it's
Oh,
like from the
yeah,
other side. Or absolutely, if you were an energy vampire, come in and see what it's like to have to deal with one. It's really about the range of experiences.
yeah,
This, he said, isn't like one of the huge ones. I mean, it's a big lesson, but it's not
yeah.
like loss and death and addiction. These are kind of like,
These are
um,
more rooted in other lives. Yeah,
yeah,
is that what you said?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah. This one's not necessarily. It's just like an experience that we can have here.
Okay, what about, I think it's gonna be the last question for this. Um, what about the negative energy vampires like trolls? What are they here to learn or teach?
Well, what one of what he says is one of the shittiest things for us as humans is to come in and have negative experience,
Yeah.
and energy vampires help give those.
Oh, yeah.
The negative
So it's
ones.
a gift.
It is.
Maybe it's to teach
This is
emotional
beautiful.
resilience,
This is,
a
yes,
way to
emotional
teach,
resilience,
yeah,
strength,
self-love.
turning, just turning away, and yes, self-love. He said, when I call when we said gift, he said, yeah, like a flaming bag of dog crap on your
I
on your
know, really.
floor. Yeah, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, but yes, resilience, turning the other cheek,
Compassion
forgiveness,
for that
compassion.
person, because it cannot be fun to carry around all that hate all the time. I mean, it's got to lower their vibration. It can't
It
feel
is
good.
absolutely not. He said it is absolutely not fun for them to do it. But what happens is when you live in a negative place, you become accustomed to that. So even for these people who are very negative, they may feel like they're happy. They may feel like there's a point to what they're doing
Yeah.
and that they're here to, but he says you can learn to function and feel comfortable if you always remain on a lower vibration.
Ah,
Okay. So it's about your frame of reference.
they don't
So
know what they're missing.
correct.
Mm,
That's absolutely correct. He says it's like if you have, $5 million and this is how you've always lived your life with millions and millions of dollars, and all of a sudden you have no money. That's a drastic difference.
yeah.
But if you've always lived with no money,
Yeah.
you don't know
They're
anything. So
okay.
that's, yep. So that's what he's saying is like people who live in that more negative space don't even realize that they could be so much happier if they
So,
could get rid of that toxic behavior.
yeah. So what do they come in here to learn?
One of the big ones in a situation like that is to overcome the negativity, find love. Love would be a big, because
Oh,
oftentimes when you're very, very negative like that, your heart is closed. Your love,
yeah.
the ability to give and receive love at a great extent is closed. So he said that's a big one that they're here to learn.
So do they have problems with self-love? I mean, could they be full of self-love but still be that way?
Well, he says it's kind of tough because if anybody who knows a narcissist, you would look at that person and think that they're full of themselves, that they love themselves so much. So
But
it may
they don't.
appear that they do not.
Yeah.
So it
Mm,
may appear. So no, he said there would be number one, they're not empathic. People who live in that negative
yeah.
space all the time. There's not they're not people who come in with empathy,
Yeah.
which we need. We do need that for balance. But yes, even if they appear that they really love themselves and that they're full of themselves, it's probably a front.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
Yep.
Sometimes when I get mad at people, I just try to think of them as a tiny little innocent baby, of course they were, or a very old woman or man that's
Hmm.
feeble, and just it helps bring out the compassion a little bit. Anything else you want to add, Eric, before we close? And then we're going to do another session, if we have time, on living in ego.
Yeah. So what he says on that, like you picturing them as a baby or picturing them as old, he said that's actually really really great. So yeah, for people who are dealing with this negativity, focus on that kind of stuff. Focus on how sad their life must be and how lacking their life must be. If you can change like your anger towards them to kind of pity or
Mm,
sadness, he said
yeah.
that's more effective for you. to, for us as the non-negative people, it's more effective for us, instead of keeping the anger and the negativity. So
So,
find a way to shift it.
okay. So in other words, me stop saying, "You kiss your mother with that mouth." No, I haven't done that for a long time. I gave up. But anyway, all right. Thank you so much, Erik. I love you, Jennifer. I love
Yeah,
you. I
I
can't
love
wait till
you
you come
too.
over. And
I know, I'm
you
so
guys
excited.
check her out at psychicmediumjenniferdoran.com, and I will put it here. And I will talk to you in a minute. Bye.